Hello and welcome to 365 Days Towards Racial Change. My name is Tomlins Nyback. We're discussing black issues in America and seeing how we're getting along, how we are faring. I make these, in light of my upcoming vacation, I've been making these ahead of time, so there may be a little bit of time displacement on, talking about current events and whatnot, and I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time trying to explain that. So it's Sunday, but I've gotten two interesting feeds through my, I guess it's Microsoft. Everybody's got a feed, and two cases came up very recently. Some retrials, one in St. Louis, one in Philly, and how police corruption and this overkill on efforts to lock up black men. Uh, I mean, it's an old story. I mean, and I'm sure there's a lot of it coming out. But fortunately, we've got some independent agencies springing up to really look into corruption and this idea, like how, and it's white power. It's white power. How it is, systematically and determined to lock up people. And the sad thing is, they're locking up the wrong people, and the innocent people are still out there in some cases. Not so much the St. Louis case. In the St. Louis case, I'm sorry I don't have dates and names, but the perpetrator of an alleged murder, well, it's alleged because they got to massage everything, the legal system. But the perpetrator confessed to the crime while he's trying to give a shout out for an innocent man languishing in jail. Very, very noble for a guy locked up to say, I don't know who you got locked up for this murder, but I'm the one that did it, and you let him go. So this type of thing, and and the same issues, some kind of uh, legal beef in Philly. So first of all, we've got agencies coming up. They're getting more effective at finding out the truth in these matters, and I'm sure there's much more. There's a lot more. You think about. We don't talk about it properly as much today, but Jim Crow. Now, Jim Crow was a very real um, phenomenon in this country, and that's even before black folks were emancipated or freed. We might think of the timeline as, well, there was slavery. Then after the slaves were freed, after maybe around the Civil War, that the white folks engaged in all kinds of subterfuge and devices to keep black people marginalized, excessive uh, prison terms, and the like, to get people to keep that free black labor going is what it really was. And the exclusion, the water fountain things, and you know, there's the white side and black side, back of the bus, front of the bus, and all that stuff. And stuff. When we think about that, but we find here, like in our Uncle Tom series, Topsy, Harry Beecher Stowe says that St. Clair saw Topsy in the Jim Crow line, right? So Jim Crow, that term I'd like to meet this guy one day because he sure had an impact on Black lives. But it just means a policy of segregation, a policy of oppressing Black people. Right? Nobody else has Jim Crow directly pointed at them. No other group in America. Black people have Jim Crow pointed at them. One of my favorite shows, I don't watch it much anymore, I can't get it, but I probably would watch it, Sons of Anarchy. But Sons of Anarchy, their motorcycle group, and watch this now, what I'm about to say. They're a white motorcycle gang primarily, but they had a Jim Crow law and rule, and their Jim Crow wasn't against people of color because if you ever watch the show, there's a character named Juice. He's obviously not white, right? I forget what he says. He he's not actually sure about his lineage, what makes him darker than the other bikers. He's not white, though. He's not purely white. And there's even a whole series of him and the sheriff going back and forth because the sheriff threatens to expose Juice as a black man. Now, what I'm trying to say is this Jim Crow issue isn't aimed at people of color. Jim Crow is aimed at Black people. Okay, and that's what we see with these convictions being overturned, police corruption being exposed, and all this. And even today, when people are asked, they're still covering their ass. You know that the law. The law enforcement system is such that they cover their ass in their process. So in some cases, even if these guys are they're going to get retried and all this, they need to just let them go. Right? I don't understand that. We're like, even you see how the white folks win on both sides. You know, they engage in false convictions. They got paid. They went to their nice communities, homes, and families got paid. Now you got to have a retrial. So now you got to bring in another probably white judge, white system to get to help extract these innocent Black men from the system. Wow, what a deal! What a deal! But the mind of what you're, I can go on about this a long time. Hey, I'll put it on camera. I got my little drug charge. You know, I've been busted, but it was like, guys, this is peanuts compared to what's going on the streets. You guys are really, you know, okay. Don't get me started. But what's your mind about? Uh, we have. Does the Black mind live in a liberated state? You know, because there's a whole lot of evidence and stuff. We're going through this section here on Eva and stuff. And in a couple days, we're going to talk intensely about Topsy and things like that, some serious issues. But what's your state of mind, Black folks? And conversely, white folks, what was the attitude? Okay, we can dismiss the white men who, in the St. Louis case, a witness was bribed and prosecutors falsified documents and stuff. Okay, we get that. We watched enough movies of corruption and stuff on TV, to understand those jackasses in St. Louis. But what about the attitude of the white bystander watching this kind of stuff go on? Do they just are they just in passive mode watching innocent black people go to jail, be incarcerated, things like that? You know, is the white privilege, the power, the expectation of favor such that there's always just a passive thing? Oh, that's just white black people being uppity. Okay, finally got him. They, not critiquing the evidence, the process, anything. The white mind, the black mind. Financial literacy is another issue. These kind of things. These guys have been languishing for years, proclaiming their innocence, and fortunately, we're seeing more and more of these becoming overturned. But you've taken 2, 3, 4 decades away from a man, you know, making him fodder for your system, you know. Just there's these aspects, these portions of white society in America just insist on dehumanizing us, um, you know, making us labor fodder. We're not white, therefore um, we're subject uh, to all kinds of dysfunctional will in this nation and the world. And I believe, and uh, we got a lot of black folks doing well, but they're still, compared to white folks, they're still the other. And I think there's a sense of intuitively navigating that at all times. I know I do. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. He's the inspiration for this year-long work. I've read a couple of his books, A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com. You see behind me, hashtag us too symbol. Just want to support black women in their conversation, their struggle. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, for Black Facebook Experience. Also, if you can't find your flavor here and whatnot, then I want you to, here or anywhere on the web, I want you to start your own little project. Get it going. Get a private list of email subscribers and go for it. Or get a public list of subscribers and explode like Facebook. I'm not in that direction. And finally, like I said, we are in our Uncle Tom's Cabin series, extended series, in light of my vacation. It's my first planned paid vacation. I've had a week off here and there and paid and stuff, but this is something I planned. I made travel plans, hotel plans, and whatnot. And what a privilege! It's only took a few decades. My white counterparts have been doing this. Somewhat my white counterparts every year. I know growing up in school, hearing the white kids talk about they went on vacation. I mean, every year, same kids, because I'm in the same community growing up. Same kids every year going hunting, vacation during the school year. Blows my mind. But here we go. All right, day 209 here, and we're in chapter 24. All right, and we left off. We were introduced to St. Clare's nephew named Henrique, a little rascal he was, but he's the what happens to power in the hands of immaturity. So he was abusive. He and Eva's got to pull him aside and try to get him to exercise some more restraint with his personal servant and stuff like that. But very evil fellow. And I talked about the same kind of person that me and my siblings were subject to with a babysitter with a son that just had uh, the demon in him, that type of thing. White dude, young white dude. Um, chapter 24, we're talking about, we're still, Eva's sick, and we've got a lot of concern for little Miss Eva, and she is, she's failing, she's knocking on heaven's door. Everybody um, knows it. Eva knows it. She's quite secure in it. The sicker she gets, the um, greater level of maturity. This chapter is called Foreshadowings, and uh, so yeah, she's ready. She's pointed heavenward, and next couple days we're going to. I'm not trying to proselytize or save you or anything. We're just trying to glean the message from the text. And Harriet Beecher Stowe is using Eva to bring some this spiritual dimension to this whole slave institution going on in America. Remember, these chapters were actually originally articles in an abolitionist newspaper back in her day. So it's a nice story, Uncle Tom's Cabin, but at the same time, it's an appeal. There's arguments and stuff through fictional text. It's very, very creative, what Harriet Beecher Stowe is doing here. St. Clare finally gets medical advice. It's not good. Right, he's been bringing home potions and quack juice and stuff, hoping she'll get better. It's not. She's not getting better. Marie, the mother, the narcissist, um, she's doing all she can to be sicker than her little daughter, and that's driving everybody crazy. She is. Marie is marching around the house, saying now that Marie kind of accepts Eva's condition, she's pointing the finger now at everybody else, saying, "You don't care enough. I care the most." Like whatever is going on around Marie, she takes it up a notch and puts it on herself. I think our current president's a lot like that. I could see him in a room, and whoever's shining, he's going to get up next to you. You ever see bodybuilder competitions? You watch bodybuilder competitions. I learned this years ago. But the bodybuilders, like at the end when they're doing their big poses, kind of at the end of the competition and stuff, they uh, they're looking at who might be getting the most attention. If they're not getting the most attention, and they go and they got to get up next to that man or woman and start posing, and start showing off. That's how that current president is a lot of times. That's Marie. Narcissism. It's the world is about me. The world needs to focus on me. You know. Um, Eva doesn't like this. She's going crazy. Uh, she's seeing her mom's behavior, and Eva. The text says, in that case, Eva's not real. Doesn't have a high expectation on her parents. That's Eva's maturity. She's in the clouds. She's light years, miles above the grown-ups around her. Um, Eva has a short reprieve of the symptoms, and you see this in people and animals as well, that they get that last rush, last push. I saw it in one of my grandmothers. I've seen it in dogs often. You know, they'll have this last burst of fun, energy, interaction. Enough energy to just say goodbye sometimes. And Eva has this as well. Harriet Beecher Stowe has probably seen this in her day, and seeing a person on death's door, then they get a bird some second wind of life, and then it tapers off. And I expect to do that if my life goes a natural course. We see it. It's just something about life. You know, the last juice of life comes out, and now we're ready to be spent and go on to the next thing. Whatever you believe about dying, death, and dying. That's Eva's experience. She's turned heavenward. She's not fooled. Tom's not fooled. Tom and actually Mammy, another house slave, they're not fooled. They understand, and that they know even before Eva has this resurgence of energy. They they're like, they say like the heaven is written on that child and stuff, because the black folks are extremely spiritual, right? Tom knows it. Tom's older and mature and stuff. Mammy is the same. So this is they see this, but they understand. Eva knows. It's more the white folks are more in denial about what's about Eva's uh, future, how short her time is on Earth. She has a growing concern for the slave institution. She's very concerned about that. She doesn't like that. Tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about. It's not just that she doesn't like it. She's almost ashamed to be human, associated with this race of people. It's the human race, right? It's not you don't have to be colorblind and all that. Just recognize the humanity in each person. We're seeing in the story. I hope you get it by now. There's two kinds of at least white people in the story. The slaves are always under pressure, dysfunction, and stuff. But let's put the slaves aside, the black people. Look at the white people. There's two kinds. We see north or south, two kinds. There's the ones that recognize, acknowledge humanity, and are trying to make sense of this mess. These people are usually the white women, right? And so what's on the other side? Okay, the white men we've seen in this story so far are usually for for slave trade, the dehumanization, the thinginess. That's my new word, although I've heard it before. The thinginess of black people. That it's a leprosy. They're a missing link between farm animals and white people. They're incapable of civilized human values and things like that. We find most of the white men of that. St. Clare's kind of on the fence. He's he's kind of washed his hands like Pilate and says, "Yeah, I keep slaves, but at least I treat them well." That's his argument. He's trying to juggle both sides at the same time. He's right on the fence. Okay. Uh, so that's Eva's concern. She gives some verbiage about that, and Eva goes even as far as likening herself to Jesus, and she says she would sacrifice herself for this group of people in the same way Jesus did this for his church and believers and things like that. And um, Tom, Mammy, other people around Eva are like, it's no use calling in doctors, drinking quack juice, and shielding Eva from life. This little girl is pointed heavenward. You think about the maturity you might see. I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but in a St. Jude commercial or some Shriners Hospital, those children's commercials, where they're asking for support, but the children, you know, got to kind of grow up quick because there's no, right. You're talking. I can't imagine less than 10 years of um, living on the earth. I kind of lived on the earth for a long time. It seems as though my um, the cross I bear in this life is kind of a longevity, and so I'm on the other side of it. Those with the brevity of life, maybe their lives were aligned in such a way with the divine that uh, they passed their test early. If that's how it works, right? Um, so we see Shriners Hospital, St. Jude, and all this. Remember, Danny Thomas gets his stuff. He got his thing together. I think he's the St. Jude guy, and these children got to grow quick, and some of them grasped that maturity aspect. There was one little girl. I don't have no idea. That she had her leg amputated. She was in the commercials for a while, and I'm like, man, this girl, like, I bet you get in the room, feel this small because this girl is like, I know who I am, what I'm dealing with. Might not be around all that much longer, so you better have some real conversations with me. You know, ain't playing around with life, but uh, life is too short. It takes that literal. If I can't get out of this hospital alive, so that's what's happening with Eva in this scene. There's these foreshadowings, a properly named chapter. I don't think it's a spoiler alert where Eva's headed. We're walking and spending time with Eva on the way. We're privileged to be part of that conversation. Um, we know where it's headed. We'll see maybe in a couple chapters what it will look like exactly. But now, hopefully, the audience, us here at Racial Change, are better at um, having this conversation. Hey, have this conversation with your people. On my vacation, I'm hoping to have some tough conversations. I don't want to go. I want to go relax a little bit, but um, I need to. I feel a need to have some conversations with some of the people I'm going to be with this time. So there's Eva's story. We're not a whole lot of not action and stuff going on. It's very, we're getting into this meditative, contemplative mode here with this little girl being so mature, and the story is really going in deep on the heart. Harriet Beecher Stowe has decided, she's taking it up a notch. You know, she's challenging the Christendom of the nation at that time. Remember, America used to call itself a Christian nation. It doesn't anymore because we've had to be uh, more polytheist to include everybody in the land. But there was a time when we felt we were a Christian nation. One of my favorite shows, MASH, one of their episodes uses that phrase. It's something I heard growing up, early 70s and things like that. Not so much anymore. That's day 209 out of the way. Thank you. Just come and stick around again. I hope your week starts out well. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. That's 365 days towards racial change. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.